Hi, everybody, and welcome back to EBnet Stream. I've been following Guy Holwill for some time now on LinkedIn, and he posts some very interesting commentary around COFI, fees, all with the mindset or ultimate aim of building or retaining a sustainable financial services practice. So I thought I'd link in with, excuse the pun, I thought I'd link in with Guy today and explore some of his thoughts around that. So welcome to EBnet Stream, Guy.
Thanks, Natalie. Glad to be here.
Okay, so let's jump right into the conversation, and I want to start with fees, and it is something that advisors are looking at. It is something that there's quite disparate practices in the industry. So perhaps from your point of view and from your experience running such a big financial services practice, you can share with us what your perspectives are.
So it's as you say, it's very diverse in terms of the kinds of fees and the way fees are earned and what have you. Roll this back 25, 30 years, right? And the entire industry lived on upfront commission, right? I mean, that was kind of where we were at that point in time. And that's changed, right? I mean, you know, in even 15 years ago, there was still a high percentage of people taking upfront fees on investments. Now there's a bunch who don't do any upfront at all. It's only ever passive income. And so people have looked at revenue models, and certainly one of the core tenets behind the original RDR papers, which was morphed into COFI as it gone along, was, you know, the FSCA or then FSB that launched it. The idea was that advisors should be paid by the client for services rendered to the client, right, as opposed to being paid a commission out of the product that is sold to the client. And in principle, that makes a bunch of sense, right? How you go about implementing it, there's a million different ways of doing it, and there's pros and cons to all of them. I think the end result is that we should get to is, okay, so fees should absolutely be transparent, all of them, and that competent professionals should earn a very good living, the same as any other competent professionals, heart surgeons or lawyers. It doesn't matter, right? That should be the end goal as to how that works. So, you know, the mechanism, I say there's lots of them. They're going to evolve. I've got personal views around some of them, which I think will be more successful over time. But as I say, you know, the end is it must be transparent. It must be completely transparent to the client as to how you earn your money. And then secondly, there's nothing wrong with making good money.
Right.
Competent professionals are entitled to do that, right? There's no issue with that.
So I mean, we talk about ongoing fees versus upfront fees, and we talk about a sustainable practice, which in my mind speaks to ongoing fees. Do you have a preference? Do your advisors have a preference? And more importantly, do your clients have a preference?
So the clients don't really understand our world very well, to be honest. I mean, to be fair, most clients kind of want to know, am I going to be okay? Yeah. Right? And it kind of stops there. And if the feeling they get they're going to be okay, they're kind of okay with everything else. Some obviously do. Some, and of course you can't put everyone into the same bucket. So certainly as a business, we really advocate for ongoing revenue and really trying to help advisors to think more and more about that, right? As to how do you build up ongoing revenue, and so that, you know, you can go on holiday and you still get paid. You know, you can sell your business one day, you can still do that, right? You know, you're not waking up the month going, right, I have to sell something to someone now to get paid this month. You know, you can't live your life like that. You can't be certain you can pay school fees or employ staff or all those good things that you'd want to be able to do with a fundamental uncertainty around your revenue. And so, you know, we really advocate that people, listen, you're entitled to charge whatever you're legally allowed to charge. We're not going to get in the way of that. And we're not going to certainly not dictate that to people. But, you know, in terms of what we would advocate is absolutely build passive revenue, build up where you're not starting the month on zero and chasing sales. I think we've moved on from that world. As an industry, we've significantly moved on. And certainly if you look at the sort of guys who are thriving, I mean, they wake up and there's good money in the bank account, right? It's all done. And they can plan their life accordingly.
Does COFI impact this at all?
So COFI actually has one of the tenets of it is a sustainable practice for advisors. It's actually one of the real pillars. They put it on here. And so, you know, and of course then great customer outcomes is another core to that. I think if we look around the industry, we'll see quite a bit of the mischief that has happened relates to upfront commissions.
Sure.
25 a month, 25 churn of life policies, that sort of stuff. It's unfortunately does still happen. There's things in place to try and slow it down or stop it, and it's probably not as bad as it used to be, but it most certainly still happens, and that's not a great client outcome. So I think that there will be aspects of that will come through. And I think the original RDR talked about a sort of a more a 50-50 between an upfront commission and an ongoing portion on the life side of it. That was quite a while ago, and we'll see what the end answer is going to be. But it won't surprise me at all if they reduce the amount on the upfront side of it, and build the ongoing piece on the life, because it's the life risk policies where that big issue really sits. I mean, it's the sort of main place.
So you talk about outcomes. Is there an opportunity for an individual who engages with their financial advisor to negotiate whether they pay upfront or ongoing?
Oh, so in many cases, okay. So if we're talking commission structures, so i.e. commission paid by a product provider to the advisor, in most cases it's got no impact on the client whatsoever. Okay. It doesn't matter the commission structure. Obviously, if the advisor scales the commission, it reduces the premiums. But so they can reduce that. They can negotiate and say, listen, I'll do this deal with you, but you must scale your commission to 50%. Whether the advisor takes it upfront or ongoing should have no impact on the client. And there would be a fundamental TCF issue if it did, in terms of if advisors were choosing commission structures that had a negative outcome on a client, right? So the product providers have pretty much all built it so that it doesn't matter to the client, doesn't change the premiums or anything, how the advisor chooses to get paid. Mm-hmm. That's a matter between the insurer and the advisor. What the clients also have is an option of going to a client who is a flat fee advisor. Right, so a person who says, I don't charge commissions, I make them all go to zero, but you pay me X rand a month for me to look after you, right? Or I charge you Y rand for X service, whatever that might be and what it looks like. And again, those can be negotiated, they to a point, right? Again, I think it's, again, go back to my opening comment, competent professionals are not required to give their services away. You don't go to your GP and say, listen, will you give me a discount?
Sure.
Right. I mean, they charge what they charge, and that's, if you don't like it, go to another one. If you don't feel like it's value for money for what you're paying. So I think that sort of, similar mentality should prevail.
I'm glad you touched on the fee for service model, because I've always had this impression, and I'm very happy to be proven wrong or to change my mind. I've always had this impression that commission, or the word commission, creates almost a barrier in our industry, and it creates a customer who already arrives kind of going, guy wants to sell me something, otherwise he's not going to make any money. Are you seeing a kind of move towards fee for service, or is that kind of still in its infancy?
So look, there's some people that fully work like that today already. They're 100% fee for service advisors, and we're busy with a couple of different sort of trials of versions of that in certain parts of the business. As I say, some clients do respond poorly to the sort of the notion of commission. Others don't really care. It doesn't really feature that much in it. I think the reality is, for most advisors, is that's what the industry has dealt them. And so it's quite difficult, to get going in an industry. If you're going to charge a fee for service on day one, sure, that's going to be hard work. That's going to be really hard work. Yeah. So, it's tricky, because I think the whole industry, if it was structured differently, would make it a lot easier to implement models like that. But that's it. Okay, so the simple analogy that I would use to say, at a fundamental level, yes, I agree. Because if your thing was you didn't pay a fee to your GP when you went and saw them, and the only way they got paid was writing a prescription for you, and they got a commission from the drug company, right? How comfortable would you feel about that? Right.
Well, to contradict you there, or to add a different spin on that, I would feel far more comfortable to only pay my GP if I got better.
Okay, that's different. That's the outcome based, right? That's an outcome based on it. But I mean, in some cases, it really depends on the client. I mean, there's clients where the right advice is you need to reduce cover. You don't need the amount you have there before, right? And so you should pay the advisor for giving you that advice, right? They've saved you money. They've given you good advice, right? You should. Whereas on a commission model, the advisors kind of shafting themselves by doing that.
That's
right? So that they are conflicted on those things. So yeah, there's pros and cons. And I think there's some people who present a pretty holier than thou attitude on this, and I kind of see where they're coming from, but practically it's not quite that easy. There's others who, there's a spectrum of views.
And there's a commercial reality.
There's a commercial reality.
As you started off by saying, salaries need to be earned and expenses need to be covered. And so there is this kind of, in my mind, this kind of perverse remuneration structure around financial planning and financial advice. I want to just step into a different kind of perspective on this fees conversation, and it is a cheeky question I ask most people now when I chat to them. Obviously, AI is a thing. And I myself typed my financial situation into one of these platforms, and I got it to write my financial plan for me, and it was pretty spot on. And so then I started thinking to myself, is the financial advisor out there getting a bit nervous? If not, should they be? And kind of we hear these things like financial advisors should be using AI. And if they do they have to discount fees because now they're using kind of less work, or they're having to do less work? Does AI change any of this conversation?
EBnet is proud to bring you top quality content from experts across the financial services industry in South Africa and internationally for free. Your support helps us in doing this. All we ask is that you subscribe to our channels by clicking the subscribe button below. Share this video with others you think will benefit from it, and give us thumbs up if you are enjoying the content. That way, you help us help you. Thank you from the team at EBnet. For more great content, please visit www.ebnet.co.za.
It should. I mean, it really should, right? So what's going to happen with the AI? So the question I come back to you, when you put your plan in there, did you implement via the ChatGPT?
No, right. I mean, I have my financial plan in place already.
Okay, so what happens is, AI is incredibly useful for some of the technical aspects of what financial planners do, right? What AI can't do now, and it's going to be a long time before it can, is make you feel that you're going to be okay, right? That you have that deep feeling. So you've sat with your planner, they've done work together with you properly, and you walk out there going, I'm going to be all right. I'm fine. This is good, right? And that's after a market tank, yet another time that it goes up and down, because it always goes up and down, right? And or whatever event has suddenly happened, you go, but no, we planned for that. It's okay. And it's a long time before machines could, not our lifetime, before machines are going to make human beings feel okay. And so what the planners, the planner will do, and my view on the AI stuff, and I actually wrote this in 2018, is that I think AI becomes a fantastic financial planning tool. In fact, I would suggest that paraplanners should be terrified of AI, right? I think paraplanners should be, right? The technical aspect of financial planning. Because, I mean, crunching numbers, I mean, machines are hell of a good at that, right? I mean, running iterative scenarios and a whole bunch of different ways of doing things, all of that stuff the machine can do. Constructing portfolios, that's something a machine can do really well. What the machine can't do is sit down with somebody who's had some awful life event or whatever that's there, or his situation has changed fundamentally, surprise divorce in their 50s, and now what does life look like? And sit down and put a plan together as to how's this going to work out. And I think that's where the humans still have a competitive advantage that won't really get touched. So I think there was a quote from someone that said, it's not AI that's going to take your job, it's people who can use AI that will take your job. And I think that's probably where we will end up, is that AI will become an incredibly useful assistant. It does certain tasks much better and quicker than human beings can do. So, for example, staying up to date on tax laws and the impact of that on specific products and strategies that you may have used in the past, that can do all that stuff. But as a standalone, I don't think so. And in fact, a sort of a light version of that was 10 years ago when robo-advice was a thing, right? And you saw the sort of big investment platforms coming along and what have you. And they were going to take over the world, right? It was going to take over everything. But there was a fundamental sampling bias at the beginning. They were built by people in Silicon Valley, which is the only place in the world where you have 30-year-old millionaires. Or 25-year-old millionaires, right? The rest of the world doesn't have 25-year-old millionaires. The rest of the world has old people with money, right? And so you have these young, super tech-enabled people who trusted tech for everything, because that's all they do, who were really wealthy when they were young, and they assumed the rest of the world was like them, which is not true. The rest of the world is very different to them. They're a very small subset of people. And so all of those platforms today, if you go look at them, they all have links to advisors in them, because they realize that the youngsters will do a lot of research online. They will look at a whole bunch of things, but ultimately, when it comes to implementation, they want someone to hold their hand figuratively and say, it's going to be okay. This is the right one. You've chosen correctly here, as to how to do this.
It's such a great perspective, because I'm reflecting now when I contact my financial advisor. So despite being a CFP professional myself, I have a financial advisor, right?
So do I.
And so when I chat to him, I do kind of get off the call feeling a little bit better, going, okay, somebody else has endorsed this view or shares my view or can interrogate my thinking for me. So it's such a valid. It's such a valid point to raise.
You're a sophisticated client, right? So you're in the top 1% of clients who actually really understand what's going on here. The vast majority of people don't. This is not what they do. Even if they're really successful business people or whatever,
sure,
they're not financial planners, right? This is not that they're good at doing something else. And so not potentially hyper smart people. This is just not what they do.
Surgeons, One last question before we wrap up, Guy. If you were advising somebody coming out of school at this point in time and they were looking at becoming a financial advisor, what piece of wisdom could you share with them when it comes to kind of starting off their career? What excites you about it, and kind of the sustainability of this as a profession?
Yeah. So it's really funny. So the one course I wish I'd taken at school is not woodwork, but typing, right? It turns out I spent a lot of day writing emails and stuff like that, and how many years of my life I've lost by hunt and peck as opposed to typing properly. How many financial planners should have studied psychology? If you're going to go, that's going to be my yes, you have you can't get away from the technical stuff. You have to understand the technical stuff, right? But the thing that ultimately is going to make you hyper successful is your ability to work with people, right? And if you can understand how people think, you've got a massive advantage in that scenario. So think carefully. Go and study stuff like this. It's all good. Treat it like any other profession, like becoming a lawyer. Treat it exactly the same. Study relevant undergrad, do the relevant postgrad, go off and do articles. Go and where you're gonna get over the theory and into the reality of the real world, and then figure out what you want to do and where you want to take it. But treat it like a profession. And sort of go through learning like that. And then I say just double down on the bit where you've got the competitive advantage, the human side, because ultimately I think that's what's going to make you into an indispensable, planner for the client.
And it's going to be what's going to manage your conduct. And that swings us right back to COFI, right? It's about conduct, and it's about making people not only feel comfortable, but doing that with ethics and integrity. So thank you, Guy. Thanks for that very thought-provoking conversation. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Fantastic. Awesome. Lekker. Thank you so much.